Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Chris Adams. I'm the online community manager for ModernAnalyst.com, the premier community for business analysts. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar titled 7 Agile Best Practices for BAs. Today's featured speakers are Jiří Wallach, VP of Product Management at Polarian Software, and Clara Chismaru, Product Manager at Polarian Software. The webinar will last approximately 60 minutes, including the Q&A session at the end. So be sure to submit your questions in advance using the questions feature of the GoToWebinar software. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Jiří to get us started.
Thank you for the introduction. Welcome, everyone. It has been a while since our last webinar we did together with Clara on Agile topic. And I think the topic is still important, so we were really enjoying the collaboration, and we hope you will also enjoy the webinar. The agenda, in the first part, we are going to shortly see how the role of business analyst fits the Agile project management. Then we will move to the core of our discussion by exploring the 7 Agile best practices for BAs. The discussion is organized into best practices, but also challenges that you should be aware of, and the way our customers and also our teams, because Polarian follows the Agile methodology, have been able to address those challenges. At the end, after our conclusion, we will have about 10 minutes for a Q&A session. So yes, please, anytime, just use the Q&A panel to fire the questions. Before we start, just very, very short introduction about the company we both work for, Polarian Software. Polarian is a leading innovator in web-based requirements management and quality assurance and ALM solutions since our first product release in 2004. And we serve companies of different sizes in a very broad spectrum of industries, from functional safety system engineering to IT software companies. And unique differentiators include the fact that Polarian ALM is based on single unified artifact repository, orchestrated by powerful workflow. It's 100% web-based, and this enables to streamline collaboration, transparency, and release predictability, as well as regulatory standard compliance. Now I'll pass the presentation to Clara to kick off our webinar.
Hello, everybody. How does the role of business analyst fit into Agile? Because if you look at the Agile frameworks, you will see that they do not include this role of business analyst. And because of this, there have been long debates in the industry whether this role brings any value, because the framework stipulates that the teams are self-organized. I was looking for some definition of business analyst, and I found one that I really liked on the Institute of Business Analysis, and they define the analyst as the agents of change. And in its essence, Agile is helping organization to embrace change, right? So this means that it doesn't matter whether you are called business analyst or whether you have another title, because the skills of business analysts are needed in Agile more than ever. What we think that you need is to have an Agile mindset, this meaning letting go the illusion of certainty, of the command and control, and instead value more learning and adaptation. In this webinar, we're going to discuss 7 Agile best practices, and these are specify requirements progressively, involves planning and prioritization, a picture is worth 1,000 words, communication, embrace change smartly, quality is queen, and to do risk management. So let's start. One of the most important jobs of business analysts is to manage requirements, mainly to specify the requirements up to the tiniest detail. I remember working with business analysts in the past, and we weren't using the Agile framework, and I remember they were creating long work documents with all requirements specified and pre-approved with the customer before we even started to discuss how we're going to implement them. It was a very tedious process, and then when the development started, we realized that it wasn't enough time to fit all the requirements that were there, so we had to go. There were technical details unknown at the time the requirements were created, so we had to rework the requirements. And of course, when the customer was seeing the first version of the product, the customer realized that there were problems with the initial requirements. And again, rework was needed. So we had to throw away a lot of the initial requirements, and this was a waste. It wasn't only for the business analysts, it was for everybody, and you can imagine, it was a lot of frustration. Now, the Agile way helps solve these problems because they require you to specify the requirements progressively. You start first with a vision, the features that need to be implemented that mainly describe the problem, and pay attention to this, only the high level what the software is intended to do for the customers. Then you define the details only for the features that are going to be implemented in the next iterations. And this is called a just-in-time approach. It is very important that you detail the requirements in collaboration with the stakeholders. And you can even delegate the details of how to implement specific features to the development team. Now, if you look at the framework in the standard Agile way, you don't have formal requirements documents. You have only a backlog that it's a pile of epics and user stories. However, if you are working in high regulated industries, you need to define these requirement documents because this is a base for selecting this, for building this backlog. However, having this specification requirements document doesn't mean that you have to define all these requirements in full detail. To be agile, upfront, to be agile, all you need to do is to develop them incrementally. And of course, you should make sure that the documentation of the components produced by the iteration are also outcomes of this iteration.
So we probably all agree in that Agile brings a lot of value and it helps to release the software products faster and better. But there's definitely lots of people who do not think critically about Agile. And I would like to share with you two comments. I mean, we have gathered one from internal feedback from our customers, one I found on the internet. Let's review them because they clearly, let's say, speak to the topic of requirements management for Agile. So first one, under Agile, technical debt piles up and is not addressed because the business people will not see a problem until it's far too late or at least too expensive to fix it. And the second one, Agile forces developers to work on atomized feature-level user stories, and developers are often disallowed to work on improvements, defects, issues that can't be related to short-term, immediate business needs. I mean, anytime I hear complaints, the typical answer is that you do not Agile right. I mean, that's easy, but let's go beyond this and think critically about how to solve the problems. Like if you hear problems about technical debts or people don't focusing on other than the short-term increments. I think one approach is to define the the collaboration between the technology and the business departments. And I like the definition of a product owner as it is defined on Scaled Agile framework and the relation it has to product managers and to Agile teams, where product owner is really more a facilitator who ensures that the business vision, the business needs are properly translated down the stream to the developers and Agile teams, but at the same time, the product owner is able to articulate the needs, the technical needs, the architecture needs up to the product management. So when speaking about requirements, I would clearly highlight that the product owner really needs to bring these two works together. And the second one that I also face very often is the problem that people tend to forget about right tools. So I mean, we hear in Agile Manifesto how much the collaboration and on-site face-to-face meetings are important, and we forget about giving people the right tools to actually gather the information in time. I give you this example, for example, that we internally manage the stories, Agile requirements in the BDD script, so behavior-driven development format. This gives a nice framework to developers so the automated test cases can be automatically generated from just the user story definition. But on the other hand, it is extremely difficult to create those specifications by a typical business analyst. That is, for example, able to write down the requirements easily in a document format, and I really think that it's better to gather the feedback in the right tool, even if this is textual, and later convert the textual requirements into the formally defined user stories.
The second best practice is evolve planning and prioritization. One of the main Agile goals is to have working software all the time. This requires delivery of value in every increment and fast incorporation of the feedback. In order to achieve this, you need to prioritize the backlog continuously. The backlog is ordered usually into a sequence based on considerations like business value, time needed, risk, of course, the strategy. These priorities usually change continuously because the business environment changes continuously. So you should be able to review this backlog and adapt these priorities regularly. Now, working in iterations doesn't mean that there is no roadmap. Roadmap is still important because it keeps the team on the track with the business objectives, and it provides visibility on how the product evolves over time. It is important to keep in mind that in Agile, roadmaps are not commitments on a fixed time and fixed scope, because if this will reduce the agility. It is a good practice to keep this roadmap focused on the shorter term tactics, like about 3 to 6 months. And on the long term, you should only write goals. Please notice this difference between tactics and goals. Anything beyond the planning horizon may be unrealistic given the rate of changes in the business environment, and that's why the roadmap needs to be updated as needed. Every stakeholder needs to have visibility to the latest version of this roadmap, so it's a good practice to publish it in your ALM tool.
Focusing on continuous delivery has the effect of creating an unmanageable defect backlog while developers work to put something in front of the customer. Yes or no? I mean, I would love to hear your comments. You can use the Q&A just not to ask a question, or share with us whether you have a similar experience like one of our clients. And that's definitely correct to think that before you can prioritize or plan something, the backlog, has to be manageable. And too many times we really see that issues, feedback items, just the scale gets so unmanageable that it's very hard to prioritize the items. Let me speak about two possible approaches how to convert this into manageable backlog. The first one is, I would say, if you speak about defects backlog, whatever defect you found during the implementation, let's fix it. Let's apply zero bug policy, at least for new increments. How can you do that? Two important elements: transparency and the workflow control. We have a very good experience with ensuring, for example, the implementation and defects and tasks has been finished and verified. That's the enforcement. The first part, of course, is to make it visible. So whenever the automated test fails, it has to be linked with the user story, so it gives transparency to the process and can really ensure the zero bug policy for new increments. But that's just to prevent the situation to worse. If you really speak about a backlog, how to really manage it, again, I mean, the prioritization, you can have a very fancy UI features like drag and drop the items up and down to set the priority. But if you speak about hundreds of elements, even maybe thousands of elements, it's very difficult. So we have a good experience with multidimensional prioritization. We take this approach from FMEA risk analysis. So instead of forcing people to set the priority number, comparing the items, which is very time-consuming operation, you have much better experience with qualifying the items by different categories, like in terms of defect. Does it have a workaround? Yes, no, easy, exist. What's the detection? Is it easy to detect this issue, or is it completely hidden and only, I mean, you will even not spot that this issue exists? Occurrence, frequent, not frequent. The severity. And based on that, you can calculate your own priority factor, and this makes it at least better to see the right issues on the top of your backlog. You can apply the same schema for the feedback items, for the user stories. This multidimensional concept works pretty fine to convert a heap into something manageable.
The third best practice is one that is very dear to my heart because I learned it the hard way. There are studies that show that people remember what they hear about 10%, about 20% of what they read, and about 80% of what they see. So you can imagine that if your requirements are full of text, you see the big difference between what the people can actually remember if it's text and what they can remember if the information is presented visually. I remember I had once to create at the time, it's called marketing requirements document, and we had a template, and I'd done a serious research of the market, and the final document was 120 pages. I worked long time on this, and I was so stressed to do it, and when I finally finished and proudly presented to management, guess what the reaction was? Do you expect me to actually read this? I don't have time to read this. So in the end, all they read was this 20 slides presentation that I prepared. It was frustrating, and I think many of you may have encountered this situation before, when you had to write long documents, when you specified all the details, and then you found out that they are either not read entirely, or some parts are forgotten in the final product. So you spend time to specify them, but nobody implemented them. or that they change during the development and actually they become obsolete. We think that the requirement written in words are still important, of course. But you have to think that you need to use visuals whenever possible. A picture, a diagram, for example, they are easier to be understood and remembered than long text. Even more important, it's easier to adjust a diagram than 20 pages of some requirement. We have examples of visuals that you can use are in the full product lifecycle. So you can use personas, you can use use case diagrams, activity diagrams, user interface, flow diagrams, wireframes, roadmaps, anything that helps people understand better. Don't forget to also add modern design to this diagram. So if you convert these words into these long visuals that nobody understands, it's again, I think it's the other extreme. So it's wrong. It's bad practice. There's one other good practice that I think it can work. Of course, depends on the project. If you can have an early prototype, so something where the backend can be simulated, but the user experience is realistic, you will be able to receive earlier feedback, and of course you will deliver faster. And as anything in Agile, prototypes are also iterative, so it means they improve with every iteration. The fourth best practice that we have today is about communication, and this is quite a big topic, and I think very important because communication is the key of everything we do. Agile helps you enhance this communication because it helps you reduce the feedback loop, it helps you involve the customer earlier in the process, so therefore you will have their perspective. You are able to actively collaborate with the team members, and all these Agile meetings like the daily scrum, sprint review, sprint retrospective. So all of them help you improve the communication. However, there are still challenges, and I found this cartoon that I liked really much because I think we still rely a lot on emails. And give you some time to read it. Practically, there's this guy, dude, why haven't you answered my email? Well, your message was so poorly written that I didn't understand it, and I didn't even dare to start a dialogue. Maybe I should have a talk to your boss. Well, maybe you should email him. So, because you see, many people still rely on emails, and because the ideal case of co-locating both stakeholders is not realistic, it is important to use the tools that allow you a transparent, real-time collaboration. So your tools should be able to allow you to communicate in real time with your team, being them threaded discussions, wikis, polling, alerts, individual dashboards. You need to be able to have extreme visibility to all Agile artifacts like product backlogs, sprint backlog, release plan. Maybe you have Kanban boards, burn-down charts. You should be able to streamline the formal approval of processes, and Polarion has this via the approval center and compliant e-signatures. You need to be able to keep track of how decisions were made with a fully automated collaboration history that you can present to the audit trails.
Agile is definitely, based on the team collaboration. But we need to think widely, and we all know that Agile is also not only about the development teams, even though we see too many times that it's being rolled out only in development teams, and the people are just thinking about agile organization transformation. We see more, that some of our customers adopt the DevOps techniques to roll out the agile technology operations, to quality assurance, streamline the collaboration. But we should go even farther and speak about how to communicate with the customers, the sales. And I don't think we really need to have to call it agile transformation. I would say let's transform the organization in an agile way, so step by step. And the communication is really the one of the things that you can very easily improve across the full organization. When speaking about, for example, the customer collaboration, I have one pretty nice recent experience with one of our customers. We do the early validation. Of course, Clara will speak about the mockups, but even to create a mockup, it's pretty costly operation. So what we do is we really sit down, we write down to the early user requirements, very overlapping, nothing incremental. We write down that, and we go and we early validate the concept with our customers, because that's the best way how to save the money, even in a very, very early phase. And here you can see, that's the screenshot from how much comments we have received back just in one meeting with a customer. We do it regularly for most of our big features. We do it offline. We can export a document to Word. We go on a customer meeting, collaborate online, import the changes back. I think this early validation, even if you forget about mockups, anything, and you just concentrate on text, it's very helpful and nice way how to collaborate with the customers. At the same time, there is the feedback from sales, from customers, and I often hear we need to process the feedback, and that's a big trap. That's another chance to create another heap of data. It's not enough to process the feedback. It's essential to plan a feedback. And of course, the traditional Agile hates this capacity-based planning, those different buffers. But consider, for example, this trend chart that shows how much new requests we receive for one of our products per week. So it's like 10, 15 new requests, 30 times requested a week per new user. That's the scale of the data you need to manage and you need to process and plan. If you don't do it, you will get to the unmanageable backlog again. How we do it? We again follow the kind of the scaled Agile framework practice. We use the value streams, so different backlogs and different capacity. In our case, we dedicate 25% of capacity to process the actual feedback from existing customers to the software that has been released.
The fifth best practice is about the core of Agile, about the change, about embracing change, and the best practice is to do it in a smart way. Because change is constant, and to stay competitive, you need to continuously adapt to change. We think that Agile was created from this necessity of embracing the change, but in an easy and natural way. What we actually found out as a nice and important benefit of Agile is that Agile is actually making the number of functional changes lower. By the process that is set up to accept a change anytime, even late in the development process, you end up with products that need to be modified less. And we really speak here about functional changes. Of course, your plans are changing constantly, but changing a plan is always easier than changing what has already been done. The continuous backlog prioritization that ensures that each sprint you focus your effort on what is most important. Early, but also frequent product reviews help you gather early feedback that results into adjusted user stories in the backlog. And, of course, you do not need to spend time on heavy upfront specifications. The second component of embracing the change smartly is to be able to perform the impact analysis. So let's take an example of a big project, huge one, of 20 million lines of code. This might result in 50,000 of requirements. You should be able to navigate through all the documentation easily, and this is why the requirements should be traceable, and you should be able to navigate from a line of code to the requirement, and from the requirement to the design documentation. It is a very big difference if you can review the impact of a possible change in one place, accessing all the available resources, access the preview of the UML component model, for example, or the Simulink system model, just as part of the component specification document, rather than having to open all those tools separately. These are tiny, tiny details that make a difference to be or not to be able to analyze the impact of a change request. And even if we do not actually want to change the existing functionality, but rather add other features consistently. Another important part is the regulatory compliance. So if you work in regulated industries, you are required to deliver the product specifications and all the supplementary documentation. We were working together with TÜV, a German certification authority for ISO 26262 for the functional safety in automotive development. And by the way, Polarion is the only LLM solution fully qualified and trusted tool for ISO 26262. As we worked together face to face, they shared with us that Polarion is the first company that they certified that was actually practicing the Agile methodology, namely Scrum. The outcome of the certification was that it does not matter much whether the documentation is actually written, but it matters more that it exists and it covers the full scope. They also liked on Agile the way how the software is built incrementally with continuous verification, reducing the number of functional changes, as we said before. And as they shared with us, the most common reason for a functional issue was not that it was developed wrong initially, but because some functionality was later changed and nobody noticed that it impacted other functionality.
It was, let's say, more on the hardcore side of the change management. You know, we have a lot of experience of system engineering. We'll go to the lighter part. Very often I hear the customers don't know what they want. And I really disagree. At least our customers. I mean, they do know what they want. They do know what they need. Maybe they don't know what's the best solution to their problems, but they really know what they do want. At the same time, the customers are different. Different customers are requesting slightly different features, slightly different approaches, solutions. And considering, I mean, that our project spans over 13 years, there is an evolution of the needs. The software industry is being changing all the time. And the biggest problem I see in the change management is actually less the actual process, because this can be really automated. You can buy a tool to manage the process, but I clearly see the biggest obstacle in embracing the change in the architecture. The fact that, and that's a common problem in Agile, that we don't spend enough time to design and refactor the architecture of our solutions, not Polarion solutions, we do spend a lot of time, for extensibility and flexibility. This goes back to the first topic when I was speaking about how much the product owner really needs to understand the technology details and communicate it loud up to the product management. I know the story by heart, and ensure that the architecture of your solution enables later change. And at the same time, as I was saying, as the customers are different, I mean, very often, I mean, you need to make your solution flexible. We probably all have teams that works on user experience to ensure the software is easy to use. Very often the flexibility goes against those principles, and as much effort as we spend on ease of use, we need to spend on flexibility to ensure it goes hands in hand. The second big problem, that's common to most of our customers and teams I visited. The second one is more related to those who deliver high number of systems in parallel that manage different variants of their products. They realize really that starting with some number of systems managed in parallel, they have more maintainers and developers. We call it maintenance paralysis. You stop adding the new features. Every change costs so much time that you are paralyzed in implementing those changes. And this goes beyond a traditional approach of just changing the architecture. And it's really great to start thinking about adopting some modern product line engineering capabilities that let you really share a common but also different and shared assets across your variants. And if I speak about sharing, I don't speak only about the code. We can adopt the same for test procedures, sharing test specification documents, test plans, but also automated test cases based on the definition of your variant. So architecture for all of us, and the variance management for those who really need to scale the number of projects. Here we can really define the environment in a way that it really embraces the change and it's consistent with the Agile methodology.
The sixth best practice is quality is king. If you look at words that are frequently used in Agile, you hear about working software, minimum viable products, trial and error. And many times we see products that lack in quality just because people think, it doesn't matter, we'll just ship it, we get a feedback from the customers, and then we'll fix it after. And I think Agile is definitely not an excuse for poor quality. To be able to achieve high quality, you need to constantly perform two things, to verify and to validate the software. Verification means that you check that you build what was specified. It means you build it right. And validation means that what you build serves the customer needs, which means you build the right thing. This means that you need to put quality at the center of your processes. You need to work with the users to define the acceptance criteria and test cases. And we think that these are the backbones of the software verification and validation. You need to implement continuous integration and testing to be able to release quality products faster. You need to make the software verification and validation part of each iteration, at least for these new features that you are adding in these iterations. Of course, you need to make sure that you constantly maintain the traceability links during each iteration, because this way you will have the right tools in place to verify and validate the software. Whenever it's possible, you should automate this process. And of course, each few sprints, you will probably need to have a sprint that is dedicated only to software verification and validation of the whole product. And this is usually before the time you release something to market. Traceability is the primary mechanism to ensure that the verification and validation are done, complete, and consistent. And your ALM tool should be able to provide you different kind of traceability documents, like requirements to user stories to code to unit tests, or requirements to user stories and then to acceptance tests, or to have visibility on in every moment on the status of the development and of the iteration.
Give you one story. It speaks about the quality, I think, a little bit, and how fragile is the software quality value. Our software is web-based, and we have recently faced an issue that Google Chrome released an update where our drop-down list stopped working. They accepted the bug report, but the problem is that not that there is a bug. I mean, every software has bugs. That's fine. And we also accept that Klarna is not a bug-free software. But the problem was with the release procedure, their release schema. And I mean, it was almost impossible to stop rolling out this version to our customer environments. Because of that, I mean, since a long time, we more recommend the Firefox browsers. That is less innovative, but it's more stable for us. The quality is more predictable. They don't release a software in such a rapid way. It's just a small example how a little thing like one bug might change the way how people think about the software. Another way how to view this release train is just to consider this statistics. So we have asked our customers, what is your schedule to update to Klarna software? 84% responded they use our latest major release. We release our software 4 times a year. Every quarter there is a release. Most of them release updates in their software even twice. And today morning I just read, and we are in Europe, so my morning time, I just opened this article where I saw that iOS 8 has the similar ratio of updated users. 87% of users were updated to iOS 8. It's unbelievable. We compare the enterprise software with a consumer product. We are delivering software for system engineering companies that needs to validate the release, and 84% are on the latest major release. That's also the way how we can really measure the quality and think about the quality, really not just the number of issues, but really the customer satisfaction. And I asked how you can ensure there's a high release adoption that really shows that people trust the release. And 3 different ideas. I mean, first, we follow a very strict Agile release train, the same QA gateway for all our releases. We don't differentiate between the service release and the major release. It's really just one QA gateway. Sure, it's, as I was speaking about architecture, it's also about what architecture we selected for our software. It's a web-based technology. It makes it easy to update. And the last one is backward compatibility. I think that that's a very important part of the quality aspect, not just issues, not just validation, but also how you think about your customers from a long-term perspective. We spend a lot of time to ensuring that we are backward compatible on the data level, also on the API level, but also on, for example, on the UI level. So, for example, I was saying that we have 4 releases a year. In the service release, when a feature is being published, we ensure that we can publish only those features that do not change the way how the people were trained to use the latest major release. If it changes the way, the users should be able to hide this functionality from the product. I think that release adoption is a very good way how you actually measure the quality of your products.
And the last best practice from us is to do risk management. And as you can see, I didn't use any verb like before, like do it smartly, embrace it or whatever, just do it. And the reason I'm saying this is because the concept of embracing the change in Agile has led many people to think that they don't need to do risk analysis. As long as you can react to what happened, why should you think about risk in advance, right? We'll deal with the situation. But actually, I think that this can be a dangerous approach because it can be more costly to fix an issue when it comes. Or remember also that the risk is not only about something bad. It can also have a positive effect, which means that you might lose an opportunity because you are not prepared for it. Risk management can be agile too, and to the extent that you don't need to define a very, very detailed risk document, and that this list of risks can be iterative. So, for example, you can define a list of risks in a succinct way. I think if you can choose what it should contain. An example can be to add some description of the event, the date identified, likelihood, severity, priority, owner, action, status, whatever you think it's enough. So don't make it too extensive. Unless you work in a regulated environment, because in this case you really need to define risk documents. And for this, Polarion offers pre-configured project templates that are fully customizable and that they include support as worksheets with real-time analytics. Risk management and how well the risks were identified and mitigated should be also part of the retrospective discussion. So whatever you do, however you do it, just make sure that you don't forget about it. Now, to recap everything that we discussed here, we think that no matter the title that you have in the company, the skills of business analysts are needed more than ever. And achieving success in an agile world means letting go of old habits, adopting an agile mindset, but still don't forget to follow the software development best practices. So it's finally time now for you to interact with us and for questions. So I see we have a lot of questions here.
Hello.
Yes. Maybe we start with the first one and we take them in order. We won't be able to answer to all of them now, but we'll try.
Questions. You were speaking about prioritization. What would be your guidance for estimation? For estimation, there are different practices. Just today, one of my colleagues was we're discussing we need a no estimate approach. I think that for estimation, remember I was speaking about the multi-level prioritization schema with making it easier to set a priority calculated from either qualification. This is the same for estimation. The thought about this prioritization was make it easy to prioritize. And this should be the same for estimation. Make it easy to estimate items. If you don't spend too much time on estimation and your estimation is reliable, it's all fine. If you have time, if you face issues with estimation, typically it's that you don't, that you struggle with setting the right realistic estimates, or you spend too much time on estimation. And I think that here you can adopt similar practices just by asking the same question. Questions like, is the story well defined? Does it require any refactoring? Does it use this or that technology? Something that the people can answer easily, and based on that you can assess the estimation. What if a solution must satisfy the requirements of the different stakeholders with different backgrounds? Maybe even multiple organizations. How do you ensure that the product owner can speak on behalf of all stakeholders? I personally don't believe in a product owner to be a single individual. I believe that a product ownership is very important to understand, as you said, I mean, in a way that you have the people that understand those different needs. In our case, I was speaking about product owner who is a facilitator of this communication. He needs really to support the communication and collaboration between all those departments or needs in your case. It could be a different type of a market, but it can be just different user experience that the product owner doesn't have. The product owner, I don't like the definition of the product owner as really a single individual who knows everything. I mean, he needs to be a facilitator. He doesn't need to do all the decisions. He just needs to ensure that he's there sitting with a team. That's also very important. The product owner, that's the agile team member who is with the team and the best candidate that represent a customer. That's the guy who is there to be asked questions. And one more thing is that we sometimes tend to think about a product owner more as a team product owner. So that's again, I mean, very nicely defined in the Scaled Agile framework. The fact that the product owner is typically responsible for 2 to 2 teams, and then I mean the product owners do speak with the product managers on the top or other business analysts. But I mean, I would agree with you. Probably you have the same feeling that it's not a single God that have an answer on all topics.
I still think with Agile that you need use cases. The user stories are huge, but they do not hold the details. They are the high level or goal of what I need to be able to do to get this task done. How do you see use cases fitting in with Agile? I love use cases. I think they are really, really important. First of all, because they help you understand why you need to do something. So I have many situations of customers that come to me, oh, I want you to do this and to do that. And when I actually start to ask the why, and usually my goal is to build a use case out of this, we realize that maybe it's not needed to do what they requested, or maybe it's not that important, or maybe it needs to be done in a different way because the problem is different. So I think the use cases help you understand better what is needed, what the root of the problem is, and then you can come with a solution. I think now it depends where you want to add this use case. I would personally add them in the requirements, and as we discussed, the requirements document is a document that is constantly developed. So you don't need to add anything up front. So of course you add at the beginning what the user wants, and then once you understand more how to do it, and we talk now about the use case of the how this functionality, how this feature is supposed to work, then I can see this as part of this requirements document. So definitely they fit.
The questions are really great.
Yes.
Another one, you mentioned that you should do V&V sprint before you release. If you do V&V during each sprint, should the team be ready to ship at the end of the sprint release? Yes, the potential shippable product is a great goal. You can do the V&V over every sprint. That's definitely something that I think it's the continuous verification, and it's very important. Even if you don't deliver the product every sprint, you still continuously verify and validate. This is fine. But the reason why we recommend to have also the stabilization sprints is that very often if you do it every sprint, you focus on verification and validation of the stored increments. That's just like this problem of a tree versus forest. You concentrate too much on the little additions, and you might lose the cross-story dependencies. I mean, I see too often, that not that something was broken, but you don't have enough time to do some high-level tests, acceptance tests, not just functional tests that can be automated via unit tests. But really, high-level acceptance tests are very important to be performed again prior to release.
We have a request to recap the 7 best practices, so let's go back to that slide so we can see them.
Okay. Okay. In the meantime, I will.
Yeah, this one, and then we can take other questions. Where I think it's a good thing. We just leave them here. I see a question with regard to the business analyst in an Agile Scrum team. Which do you think is a traditional Scrum team role that the BA would identify with? I think the most appropriate is probably the product owner, but it is not a clear recipe, right? Because the business analyst skills are used by many people. For example, in the traditional Scrum team, you do not define the role of designer, of user experience. There are many other roles not defined, but actually these people are part of the team and they are important. So hard to define. Okay, if you want to name it, take probably the one that has the highest influence on the success of the product. So it should be the person that is able to keep it together and drive the team to achieve the goal.
I also see some of the results of this informal poll we asked. You remember whether the continuous delivery results in this unmanageable defects backlog. You have, let's say, 75% of saying yes, 25% saying no. I think this is not the best mark for Agile. I don't think it's because of the Agile first. So let's doesn't be cruel to Agile. I didn't want to say that Agile is wrong. I was trying to say that we need to make sure that we don't encounter this situation. One of the comments was that no, because as long as you're prioritizing your backlog, then you always are working on the most important items. This is very correct. But the issue is really how you find out what is the most important item. How do you prioritize it? And again, that's a problem of a scale. If you have a backlog of hundreds of items, then it's easy. If you receive, let's say, 30 items per week for one product, and you manage different products that share the code base, you might end up with the situation that you really need a very good skills to prioritize it. And for this continuous delivery, continuous delivery is great for sure. But Agile, in a sense, sometimes really have this problem of focusing too much on the short-term increments and not that much on something that can cause a big problem in the future.
Lots of questions. What about problem-solving skills? I think these are important whether you work Agile or not, so that's why we didn't mention them. So, short answer.
Do you let customers provide feedback and change requests to sprint builds? We don't. Let's say I'm a big fan of the potential shippable product of continuous verification, but we really think that the feedback should be gathered much sooner. I think that in general for us, the sprint build, it's almost too late because the work has been done. So we do share, the stories, the specifications, not a formal waterfall specification, but whatever we have. And we don't give them the builds. We do the early access programs where we present the features because also, it needs guidance, especially in our complex environment. We really need assistance both through the solution before it's really publicly released. Unfortunately, I think that we are running out of time for today. If you would have any more questions, just let us know at info@ModernAnalyst.com. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you very much. Thank Modern Analyst for inviting us for this webinar. It was a great time altogether. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
okay. All right. Thank you, Jerzy and Clara. This was a great presentation. I think that's very clear from the number of